Hi, I'm Tom Brookshire.
And I'm Pat Summerall. As we head into the next to the last week of the NFL's regular season, amazingly enough, about one half of the 26 teams are still mathematically in contention for Super Bowl IX.
Oh, that is wild, isn't it? And you know, the wild card rule does keep a lot of teams in the running, Pat, even though most of the division titles are already decided. And I think that's good for the game. But what about the race in the AFC East, Pat? Who do you like over there?
Well, it's really something. Both Miami and Buffalo are 9-3. What do they have left now?
Well, Buffalo plays the New York Jets up at Shea Stadium, and then they have to go to meet the L.A. Rams in Los Angeles.
And the Dolphins play at Baltimore, and then they play New England down in the Orange Bowl where they've won 30 in a row. I sort of like the way the Dolphins are playing.
They're taking that first drive and taking it all the way down and scoring early. That's a very good sign for them.
We'll be right back with This Week in the NFL after this message.
In their 9 years of hosting a Thanksgiving Day game, the Dallas Cowboys have lost only 2 of those 9 games, but both of the losses came the last 2 years. This year on Thanksgiving, the Cowboys had to win to stay alive, and they couldn't have done it in a much more spectacular way.
On the Cowboys' first series, it was obvious that all the stops were going to be pulled as punter Dwayne Carroll passed to a wide-open Benny Barnes for a 37-yard gain. Washington's defense held, and the Cowboys had to settle for a field goal, their only points of the first half, as the Redskins' conference-leading defense did not again allow the Cowboys' conference-leading offense to cross the 50 until midway in the third quarter. Thanks mostly to their defense, the Redskins led 9-3 in the third quarter, when Billy Kilmer padded the lead with a pass to a former Dallas Cowboy named Dwayne Thomas. Several end-zone bystanders alleged that they saw Dwayne Thomas smile, which has become almost a weekly occurrence of late. Perhaps the turning point, if there had to be one, occurred midway in the third quarter, when Roger Staubach did what the Redskins wanted him to do. Number 89, Dave Robinson, applied the finishing touch to Staubach's afternoon. And number 19, Clint Longley, took over, a rookie from Abilene Christian with no previous professional experience. 3 passes later, Billy Joe Dupree scored the Cowboys' first touchdown, and suddenly Dallas was back in the game at 16-10. On the next series, the unorthodox Longley hit 3 more passes, one to rookie runner Charlie Young, number 30. By this time, the name Clint Longley was beginning to sound like the name of a true-to-life Western hero. And when another true-to-life Western hero, Walt Garrison, scored, the Cowboys led 17-16. But there was one more very large period still to play. In the fourth quarter, Billy Kilmer again scrambled some life into the Redskin offense. Roy Jefferson's catch got the Redskins close, and then once again, Mr. Irony, Dwayne Thomas, put it to his former teammates. Leading 23-17, all the conference-leading Washington defense had to do was put enough pressure on the untested rookie quarterback, Clint Longley. Somehow, Longley retained his cool, but not all of his teammates did. One drive was aborted when Pat Fisher forced a fumble from league-leading receiver Drew Pearson, number 88. It appeared to be a Washington victory, 23-17, when with no timeouts, the Cowboys' last drive could only move 10 yards in 6 plays. And then there were less than 40 seconds left, 2nd and 10 from the 50. The season's most shocking play deserves another look, this time from the viewpoint of the defensive backfield. Dallas won 24-23, and Drew Pearson, the man who had been the GOAT just 2 minutes before, was now the hero, or at least one of the heroes, along with Clint Longley. As for Clint Longley, Even if he never completes another pass, they'll always remember the one he threw on Thanksgiving Day, 1974. The day the computerized Cowboys showed how humanly heroic they can be.
Unlike the Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles needed no desperate last-second heroics to beat Green Bay, Pat.
The only similarity, Tom, was that the Eagles, like Dallas, used a rookie quarterback. And young Mike Barilla, the son of former NBA great Vince Barilla, was as cool as the breezes that buffeted Veterans Stadium.
It was a bitter day that made you want to retreat into your shell like a turtle to keep warm. At Veterans Stadium, while the wind howled and the rain poured, the Eagle defense, led by number 66 Bill Berge, stormed on the playoff hopes of the Green Bay Packers. The Packers fumbled an incredible 8 times. The most damaging was recovered by defensive end Will Wynn, number 71, who scooped up a MacArthur Lane bobble and raced 87 yards to a touchdown. For the happy occasion, Wynn came up with a novel spike as he rolled the dice, and instead of 7, it came up 6 points and a 15-0 Eagle lead. Rookie Mike Barilla started for bruised and battered Roman Gabriel and maintained the heritage of illustrious Stanford quarterbacks by screaming a 6-pointer to Charlie Young. Young's dice were hotter than Will Wynn's as Philadelphia rolled to a 29-0 wipeout of the faded Pack. Near the end of the first half, Green Bay awoke on the hands and legs of tight end Rich McGeorge. George's play led to a John Brockington touchdown, and it seemed the stunned Packers were ready to make a move when MacArthur Lane took a swing pass and went solo for 6 more. Lane's extraordinary run was denied by a penalty, but minutes later he scored for real, and the surging Packers trailed 29-14. But Green Bay fell on its own sword when a Harry Carey Hadel chest pass turned into a disastrous fumble. Barilla put the game out of everyone's reach, but 6'8" Harold Carmichael, whose touchdown built a 36-14 bulge. The 9th Packer mistake was intercepted by Bill Berge, who frolicked like a small boy en route to throwing one of the most accurate passes of the day. The Eagles' first victory after 6 straight losses was a sweet one as they knocked Green Bay out of the playoff picture 36-14.
Atlanta, this season that Norm Van Brocklin got to go hunting 6 weeks early. But Atlanta fans quickly found out that the worst was yet to come.
In Atlanta, the warm promise of Indian summer has withered in the sting of an early winter. Last week, temperatures in the 20s and gusting winds took the bloom off Peachtree Street and mirrored the fortunes of the local football team. Since opening day, the Falcons have become blackbirds, from playoff promise to dissension and defeat, a depressing march of lost causes and disappearing fans. The disappointments and the chill led to an NFL record 44,000 no-shows. And so, against the Los Angeles Rams, the sound of one-hand clapping greeted local hero Pat Sullivan, number 7, at quarterback. Sullivan actually kept his team competitive for much of the first half with an ad-lib passing attack. Ken Burrow escaped for 48 yards and set up a bi-monthly event, a Falcon touchdown. Vince Kendrick found a gaping hole, and Atlanta had their second score in 4 games, also their last. The pressure was off the Los Angeles defense as the Rams were the first NFL team to clinch their division. But the number 2 ranked defense in the NFC was not about to give in to the 13th ranked offense. Sullivan and Burrow began to find yardage much tougher to come by as the Rams closed off every avenue of possible escape. The Ramrodders shut down the Falcons and then sent them packing. Number 42, Dave Elmendorf, glad-handed a Sullivan mistake and weaved 57 yards for a score. In all, the Ram defense chipped in with 5 interceptions, more than enough to set up number 12, James Harrison, real style. The man on whom the Rams now base their playoff hopes responded with some pretty pocket passing. Harris grows more confident in his number 1 role with each successive game, and he showed a winner's finesse on this needle threader to Jack Snow. With the Rams in command, another area was tested, bench strength. Off the hardwood thundered John Capoletti, number 22, with a little Penn State power running. In relief, Capoletti had his best pro game to date. Regular Jim Bertelsen scored 2 short TDs, and the Rams stayed ready with a 30-7 victory. For the long-suffering Blackbirds, 2 more games must seem like an eternity in a season that didn't quite come off as planned.
Last week, when the Kansas City Chiefs traveled across state to St. Louis, both teams found themselves in quite an unusual position for this time of year, Tom.
That's for sure, Pat. Unusual is hardly the word, though. The amazing Cardinals have already been guaranteed a playoff spot, while the only title the Chiefs could hope for was the Pro Football Championship of the state of Missouri.
It was a perfect day for a sporting event, an event like snowball throwing, for instance. The Cardinals were very good at throwing snow. Throwing the football was a bit more difficult. Number 21, Mr. Everything for St. Louis, Terry Metcalf, gave the Cardinals an early 6-point lead, which turned out to be the only 6 points of the entire first half. The rest of the time, the idea was ball control. Both teams had serious problems trying to move the ball. But in the third quarter, a pass interception put Lynn Dawson in scoring position for the first time in the game. Number 31, Jeff Kinney, managed to hang on, and the Chiefs led 7-6. No one could approach the goal line again until the fourth quarter, when Willie Lanier had the Chiefs knocking on the door once more. The yards nearest the goal line are the toughest for any runner. Wendell Hayes took his lumps, and the Chiefs led 14-6, a lead which might be called comfortable. But who could be comfortable in last Sunday's weather? Certainly not an unknown rookie like number 30, Cleophas Miller from Arkansas Pine Bluff. Or could he? Cleophas Miller carried 15 times for 95 yards and set up a field goal which made it 17-6. Not until then did St. Louis threaten again. Mel Gray's remarkable reception brought the Cardinals close enough for quarterback Jim Hart to hand a touchdown to the magic man Terry Metcalf. Metcalf's touchdown made the score 17-13, but the Cardinals could not pull off any miracle finishes last Sunday. And Coach Don Coryell would have to wait at least one more week for victory number 10. Meanwhile, the governor of Missouri presented the Governor's Cup to Hank Stram and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Broncos, two of the most improved teams in pro football lately, squared off in Detroit's traditional Thanksgiving Day Classic.
After losing 4 straight games by a total of 14 points at the beginning of the season, the spirited Detroit Lions under new head coach Rick Forzano have turned their season around, winning 6 of their last 7 games, and now facing the revitalized Denver Broncos. The Lions hope to nurse their faint playoff hopes by continuing their winning ways. Mistakes like this Charlie Johnson faux pas intercepted by Levi Johnson were pretty much the story of Denver's disappointments early this season. But the Lions could not dent an improved Denver D to cash in this opportunity. Both teams struggled in a standoff until Steve Owens broke open on the longest run of his career, good for 27 yards. And ironically, Owens was injured and lost for the rest of the season on the play. Adding insult to injury, the Broncos forced the Lions to settle for a field goal from the 1. And midway through the second quarter, Otis Armstrong ran through a trap at right guard, cut left, and erased 32 yards, setting up a 1-yard touchdown plunge by John Keyworth, making the totals Denver 10, Detroit 3. But Greg Landry, replacing the injured Bill Munson, came right back, finding Alty Taylor wide open with this 23-yard touchdown pass, knotting the score at 10. In slow motion now, on the very next series, Charlie Johnson swung a pass to Otis Armstrong, who handled it more like a volleyball, batting it to Levi Johnson. And look out, mistakes again, making the score Detroit 17, Denver 10 at the half. But the Broncos opened the second half with a perfectly executed onside kick. And riding the momentum of this aggressive play, they swept to 3 touchdowns in the third quarter. Otis Armstrong, whose 144 yards and 24 carries gave him a total of 1,082 for the season, set up the first with this 31-yard jaunt. John Keyworth took it the last hard yard. But midway through the period, Armstrong himself slipped over right in to make the score Denver 24, Detroit 20. And Charlie Johnson capped a 50-yard drive in 5 plays with this pass to Riley Odoms, increasing Denver's total to 31, and that was enough as the Broncos held on to dump the Detroit Lions for only the second time in the last 8 games, 31-27.
Having already clinched their division, the Oakland Raiders, Pat, really had nothing to lose last week when they played the New England Patriots.
Certainly true, Tom, but judging from their performance against a team that desperately needed a victory, the Raiders appear to have all the qualifications to take on any challengers for Super Bowl number 9.
On the Patriots' first possession, Jim Plunkett figured that after 37 yards of daylight, why push your luck? Trailing by 3 points, Ken Stabler took the field, and just one heave later, the Raiders were on the board. League-leading receiver Cliff Branch was the target, and after 67 real quick yards, the Raiders led 7-3. But the Patriots came back with another field goal, and Ken Stabler looked to Clarence Davis for drive-sustaining yardage. Right after the first quarter, Stabler reached to number 25, Fred Biletnikoff, for a touchdown that boosted Fred's career reception totals to over 7,000 yards. The Patriots roared back, however, as Jimmy Plunkett orchestrated a 70-yard drive that forced at least one Oakland defender to lose his poise. From the 6-yard line, John Tarver swept left to the flag to tie the game at 13-all. But with just 1:26 left in the first half, Jim Plunkett fumbled, and Stabler seized the opportunity with a TD flip to number 88, Bob Moore. Trailing 20-13 in the third quarter, Jim Plunkett eased a pass to a slanting Randy Vataha, who outraced number 26, Alonzo Thomas, a.k.a. Dr. Death, to the end zone for a 59-yard catch and score. That left the Pats only 1 point behind, 20-19. But on the following possession, Ken Stabler and Fred Biletnikoff squeezed 26 very professional yards out of the field, and the Raiders were on the move again. Seven plays later, Oakland was up by 7 as Stabler drilled Cliff Branch with his 4th touchdown pass of the game and the 24th of the season. As the fourth quarter began, the Patriots were down 27-19, and Jim Plunkett was facing 8 pass defenders. This tipped ball fell into the clutches of the dreaded Dr. Death, who displayed some lurch-like exuberance and then hobbled away. Facing a 15-point deficit, the Patriots completed a 67-yard drive with a little help from Nehemiah Wilson, who tipped the ball to number 88, Al Marshall, and it was serious, 34-26. But in their next series, Plunkett was intercepted once again, and Raider reserves, led by number 13, Larry Lawrence, and halfback Harold Hart, number 34, added one more touchdown to complete Oakland's 41-26 victory over the Patriots.
Kobe Bryant.
Hometown entry in the AFC, the New York Jets ran their victory streak to 4. As Joe Willie Namath whistled completions both right and left in the Shea Stadium wind tunnel.
You know, Tom, there were times when the wind gusted up to 50 miles an hour, and yet Joe kept that ball on track all day and gave the Jets a chance to finish the season as a 500 ball club.
In wind-whipped and freezing Shea Stadium, it was a perfect day to be sporting the English sheepdog look. And while the wind howled, the Jets' defense blew in repeatedly to disrupt the Chargers' offensive plans. However, the Chargers are themselves sporting an improved defense and so severely limited the Jets' ground attack. The New Yorkers finally got moving on this punt return by number 47, Roscoe Word. Then the Joe Namath Air Squadron began to warm up on this short scoring pass to number 44, John Riggins. Another Namath shot was just a little too long to Eddie Bell, who was out of the end zone. So the Jets settled for a field goal and a 10-0 lead. Somehow, with papers blowing behind him and the wind in his face, Joe Willie kept his passes right on target to number 88, Rich Castor. For the day, Joe threw for 261 yards, while his improving offensive line kept him from being sacked even once and gave him time to avoid any interceptions. Namath's passes set up two short John Riggins touchdowns and gave the Jets a 27-0 lead before San Diego could get rolling. Even then, it was too late when Charger quarterback Jesse Freitas rifled one to number 27, nine-year veteran Gary Garrison. Only Garrison's great effort made it a long game. Then, sensational running back Don Woods, number 33, hit Garrison for the first Charger score of the day. At the game's end, Woods took one in himself, but it wasn't enough as the Joe-inspired Jets won their fourth in a row, 27-14.
Last week, they had some of that good old Buffalo winter weather in Orchard Park, where the Bills needed to win to guarantee a continued share of the lead in the AFC East.
That's right, Pat, and with snow before the game and the high winds dropping the temperature even lower, it wasn't a day made for offense. And so the Bills and the Colts went out and they didn't have much offense.
About the only player on either team who had any kind of good day was Colts second-year quarterback Burt Jones, whose darts pierced the winds for 170 yards. But the Buffalo defense made Jones pay for his day in the sun in the cold when they put him down 8 times for 70 yards and losses. For the Bills' offense, only O.J. Simpson had anything to cheer about as he reached the 1,000-yard mark. But that, too, was hardly a great offensive performance, for it took him 24 carries to get the 63 yards he needed and left him exactly 999 yards short of last season's total. The rest of the Buffalo offense sputtered as they, like the Colts, were unable to reach the end zone. The Bills had only one good shot, but that was dropped by tight end Paul Seymour. Seymour, a tackle in college, has suspect hands to begin with. And while his gloves may have kept his hands warm, they didn't enhance their performance as the biting cold destroyed both teams' offenses, and 2 John Leipold field goals were the only points put on the board. The Colts managed one good shot at a touchdown, too, and Jones began to find Freddie Scott, a rookie from Amherst. Another fine catch by Scott had the Colts moving in the fourth quarter, and Baltimore had 4 cracks from the Buffalo 8-yard line to overcome the Bills' 6-point lead. But 4 cracks weren't enough as an inspired goal line stand boosted Buffalo to its 9th win of the year and warmed their fans, whose team kept its share of first place in the AFC East.
Have made a frustrating habit of losing games when victory seems to be within their grasp. Last week lost another to the Chicago Bears, this time within sight of sudden death.
It's been a long, dreary season for the Chicago Bears, but Abe Gibran still has maintained his enthusiasm. And against the New York Giants, his optimism was translated into solid hits by his Bears. Led by number 84, Richard Harris, the Bears brutalized the Giants, and Chicago led 6-0. until Craig Morton lofted a touchdown to Walker Gillette at the flag. Another look reveals that Morton's quick release foiled a blitz by linebacker Doug Buffoon and left Gillette with only single coverage to beat. The Bears roared back when Bobby Douglas connected with rookie running back Ken Granberry. Granberry's catch and run paved the way for a touchdown sweep by Gary Cousins that gave the Bears a 13-6 advantage. A short smash by Doug Kotar tied the game at 13, and for the rest of the game, the two teams butted heads looking for the break that would spell victory. The rugged play of the Chicago defense put their Bears in scoring position, but a fumble by Perry Williams at the goal line ruined a golden opportunity. The Bears appeared snake-bitten all day until Randy Montgomery picked off a Morton pass and set sail to the end zone. But the bright fortune turned as bleak as the day for Chicago when Montgomery's score was called back by a clipping penalty. Finally, with only 39 seconds separating the Giants and Bears from sudden death, place kicker Miro Roeder booted the Bears into a sudden 16-13 victory over the star-crossed New York Giants.
Last week, the New Orleans Saints, Pat, were all primed and ready to capture win number 5 of the season, which would have equaled their all-time single-season victory total.
Right, Tom. However, standing between the Saints and victory last Sunday were the win-hungry Minnesota Vikings.
The Vikings had lost their 2 previous games and were now being pressed for their divisional crown. Early against New Orleans, the pressure continued as the Saints dropped in to visit Fran Tarkenton. Offensively, the Saints' most spectacular gain of the day came when number 8 Archie Manning pinpointed Bob Newland deep downrange. However, it was the New Orleans rushing attack which fared better, due mainly to a first-year runner wearing number 28 named Alvin Maxson. Maxson bowled for 98 yards while scoring the only New Orleans touchdown. Maxson's runs netted the Saints some respectability, but not much, as the Viking defense treated the rest of the New Orleans backfield with no respect at all. Minnesota directed their defensive assault at the Saint field general Archie Manning, who fell 3 times beneath the purple wave. While the Minnesota defense held the Saints to a paltry 9 points, its own offensive attack was getting untracked with Fran Tarkenton to Jim Lash completions that chewed up big chunks of New Orleans real estate. On the shorter passes, Tarkenton looked for and found his tight end Stu Voigt, number 83, drifting free and easy. The sure-handed Voigt took in one touchdown pass from Fran Tarkington, who rolled up 317 passing yards in the afternoon. Most of those big yards came by way of his favorite receiver, elusive John Gilliam, number 42. Gilliam twice singed New Orleans for 6, the first badly beating number 30, Ernie Jackson. Gilliam concluded the Minnesota scoring with a neat catch between several Saint defenders, giving the Minnesota Vikings a 29-9 win over the New Orleans Saints. The win clinched the NFC Central crown for the playoff-bound Minnesota Vikings.
Grandmaster Flashy.
49ers journeyed to the winter horror land of Cleveland, where they were seeking to play in their third shutout in a row. And they did just that, but not quite the way they'd hoped.
In Cleveland's Snow Palace Stadium, there was much of the white and fluffy to be cleared from the playing surface. And then things got worse, and it was the quarterbacks who paid. Early, Cleveland's Brian Sipe, number 17, was in the mud often. On the other hand, San Francisco's Tom Owen, number 14, visited muck and mire just as frequently. Things got so bad they started centering the ball from a clean white towel, which seemed to help immeasurably. But as the day and a scoreless game wore on, the field became a bog that brought play execution down to 0. Finally, with less than 5 minutes left in the game, Muddy Eddie Brown intercepted a Tom Owen pass and ran it into a snowdrift where he performed the world's lowest bouncing spike. From there, Ken Brown, number Mud in your program, battered the Browns to the 1, and then over on the next play to give Cleveland the lone score of the day. And while the game was mercifully over, winter raged mercilessly on.
I don't know what kind of glue Sid Gilman has used on the Oilers, Tom, but he sure has stuck together some kind of a team.
Well, you're right. He didn't get that glue in any hardware store. I know that, Pat. But the Oilers are sticking everybody, and last week they stuck the Pittsburgh Steelers, of all people.
Juggernaut was the opinion of most concerning the Pittsburgh Steelers at the outset of this season. But the Steelers have not rolled rejoicing through their schedule. And now reluctant juggernaut seems to be a more apt description. And another piece of the popular wisdom condemning the Houston Oilers as inept had to be revised last week when the Oilers met the Steelers in Three Rivers Stadium. For as one writer artfully described the Pittsburgh Steelers at the end of last season, the Houston Oilers now seem to be but a few bricks short of a load. And none of those bricks seem to be needed on defense, as the Oilers' D rendered the Pittsburgh offense practically impotent. In fact, the only sustained offensive drive of the day was concluded by this pass from Dante Pastorini to Fred Willis in the second quarter, making the score Pittsburgh 3, Houston 7. The Steelers did manage one touchdown, and that also came in the second quarter, and was the result of this poised effort by Terry Bradshaw, who remained upright and cool long enough to spot Franco Harris in the end zone, making the score Houston 7, Pittsburgh 10 at the half. But Bradshaw, under enormous pressure all day, gave away as much as he got. And this pass, which bounced off Ron Shanklin's hands and into the midst of middle linebacker Greg Bingham, resulted in a field goal tying the score at 10 midway through the third stanza. Indeed, the Oilers' defense dumped Steeler quarterbacks 4 times for 57 yards in losses, while allowing only 6 first downs and 84 yards of net offense. With time rapidly ebbing in this defensive classic, Dante Pastorini summoned his gang to one big push into Pittsburgh territory. With the drive dead at the Steelers' 17, place kicker Skip Butler trusted skill against twisting wintry winds, and he succeeded narrowly, gaining the vital difference in this 13-10 upset victory for Houston. And at the end, in the darkness of a long afternoon, unable to overcome the oppressive Oiler defense, the Steelers slipped from the field mere shadows of the juggernaut that was once proclaimed by the popular wisdom.
I'm not going to say anything, but we're both under 500. We're sinking fast.
They say it's been the year of the upset. We can't even pick an upset, though. What about this week? We got another crack. Pittsburgh at New England. What do you think?
I'm afraid the Patriots are hurting too much, Plunkett and all. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh.
They can't settle on a quarterback, but the Steelers do have a tough defense. I like Pittsburgh, too. Buffalo at the New York Jets. How about this?
I'm going to go with the Jets again.
They've won 4 in a row. Okay. Buffalo likes to play at Shea Stadium, so I'll go with the Bills. Detroit at Cincinnati. What do you think?
Bengals to bounce back?
Well, Detroit's having all kind of injury problems. I think you're right about this. Cincinnati is my pick as well. Oakland at Kansas City.
Raiders.
Kansas City always plays them tough, particularly at Kansas City, but I got to like the Raiders, too.
Okay.
Philadelphia at the New York Giants.
We have to pick this one, huh?
Go ahead.
All right, I'll go with the Eagles on defense.
You know I got to take the Giants. Washington at Los Angeles quickly.
Big game. I think the Rams will beat the Redskins.
I like the Rams, too. At any rate, we'll be back next week to show you what happens. I'm Pat Summerall.
I'm Tom Brookshire, and we'll see you next week.